Welcome to Penguin Storytime. I hope you had a great weekend. Thanks for all the feedback on the last video. Today, all stories are read from the usual voice, don't worry. And now, let's start with the first story, shall we?
The first story is called Rudeness Will Make You Wait. I'm from Brazil and I'm studying law here. And I have almost 3 years of internship in the town hall. The department I worked at was exclusively for autonomous workers like lawyers, engineers, architects, and realtors. It was just me and my boss, even though we should be 4 people. I was responsible for making those workers a series of documents related to properties they were working on for whatever reason. If you had registered your personal information with us, you could ask for those documents via email. Some were sent, some had to be picked up personally. If you didn't register your information beforehand, you had to go in person to ask for anything you needed and then wait or come back later, depending on what it was. Let me introduce you to this one impatient lawyer. At the moment she came in, my boss had left for lunch, so I was alone. She needed information on the debts of a property and the personal information of the owner. When she came in, I was finishing a document and there were 2 people before her. She didn't care and just threw her stuff at the counter and started talking. Not even good morning, excuse me or anything. I politely interrupted her, told I was just finishing something and that she had to wait until I got to the 2 people before her and told that she could either wait or come back in about 20 minutes. She tried to argue and said that what she needed was really fast and asked if I couldn't just do it for her because she was in a hurry in a rude, demanding tone. I explained it all over again using different words. She huffed and left. About 30 minutes later, my boss came back. There was no one at the counter, so I was taking the email requests. He asked me how everything was and as we talked, a court clerk came in with some contracts for us, which we had to check, sign, generate the tributes and taxes of the transaction and return to the court clerk until 2 because they had to pay the taxes on the bank, that closed at 4. Usually, they came in around 10, so we could have time, but that day they couldn't make it until 1. As my boss was checking the documents, I continued on the email and the lawyer from before came back. I noticed someone stopped on the counter but didn't look at who it was. I just continued typing, as I was finishing answering an email and said, "Good afternoon, I will be." I was going to say I will be with you in a minute and she interrupted me with the same tone from before, just louder, and asked, "Can you take me now?" I looked at her, smiled politely as if she wasn't rude and said, "In a minute." If I was by myself, I would have just dropped the email and see what she wanted, just to get rid of her an hour of pressure. But my boss didn't like me being a pushover and always lectured me when I was, so thank God he was there. It took me about 20 seconds to finish and when I opened my mouth to speak to her, she asked why he couldn't take her request. I told her that I already finished and he was busy with something he had to turn in an hour. She rolled her eyes and started telling me what she wanted. The kind of document she asked for was sent via email and would take me about 15 minutes. I tried to explain that she could ask for those things via email instead of going in person, instead of coming here to request those, you can just. And she interrupts me. "Can you just get it done already?" I was getting impatient and looked at my boss, who had stopped what he was doing to pay attention. "Okay, so I just need an email to send those." "What do you mean? You made me wait an hour to say you won't give the documents to be printed? We aren't allowed to print those here because it's the most asked document and usually is just for speculations. I'll send them to you." And she interrupts me again. This time she is looking at her phone. "Well, I'm seeing here the legal time for sending documents via email is 3 hours, so I'll be waiting." And she just left. It was going to take me 15 minutes, maybe less, but since she was so rude, I waited 3 whole hours. When I send the documents, it wasn't even useful for the day anymore because everything was closing at 4. But you get what you ask for. The next story is called Resisting Changes Can Hurt Your Business. I decided to take a year off university to earn some money and have some fun before my last year as a student. I found a job in retail fairly easy, as I've worked in stores ever since I was old enough to work. My boss was thrilled to find someone with experience, who could help improve her small store. My job was great at first, despite everything in the store needing to be done manually. We have to write receipts down by hand, make a list of articles in the store every month. We didn't even have a clear schedule of work. The boss would just call us and ask us if we could work the next day. My coworker and I weren't bothered about any of it. Except for the schedule. She's going to university this year and not knowing when she works is seriously messing up her progress in class. Our boss would also get really upset and mad whenever we told her we couldn't work the next day, due to other plans. A few weeks into the job, I decided to fix that. I made her a spreadsheet, which she could use to plan our work hours, like in any other company I ever worked for, in advance. We also gave her our schedules 3 weeks in advance, so she could build and plan around it. Her response? This doesn't work for me. What if something comes in between and the person who's supposed to work doesn't show? I try to explain that if that were to occur, the other will just try to show up. But she was having none of it, insisting that us learning whether we worked or not the next day was just fine. It wasn't, but okay. I didn't want my work to go to waste. So I altered the sheet to work as something that counts our monthly hours at work, since that also had to be done by hand and it was unnecessary time wasted. I'm sure most of us keep track of the hours spent at work, just in case. I tried improving some other things in the store, like building a database for articles we have, so we wouldn't have to hand count everything every month or every time she had to order something new. She sternly told me to delete everything I did because she doesn't like the look of it. This is kind of biting her in the butt right now, because some providers are now giving her smack about the way she reports items sold at the end of each month. That database she made me delete and the way it generated the list of items in storage is exactly what they want from her from now on. Skip to a few days ago. A few months into the job and I'm tired of her attitude. I try to help her improve the store, show motivation, present my ideas, and she shuts everything down, and we stay in the same cycle of work that wouldn't be needed if she'd just take up some of my ideas. My coworker already quit. She's now in the store purely for emergencies until a replacement is found. My boss comes into the store and tells me it's payday. Sweet. She usually wants us to count the hours by ourselves and then compare with what she counted. But apparently, she was in a bad mood that particular day and wanted me to go through everything again. We have to go over your hours for the previous month. I'd like you to count them now and tell me how many you had. Okay. I already have them counted, so you can just tell me how many you got and we can check if it matches with mine. I pulled up the sheet which both coworker and I update daily, so we don't have to do this at the end of each month. She apparently didn't like that response, since she loves doing everything by hand so much. She came barreling from her office and into the store, yelling at me how I shouldn't be checking the spreadsheet of my hour count and that I have to delete it from the computer immediately and to never try one of my improvements ever again. I, having been tired of her attitude, just raised my eyebrows and did exactly as she said. I deleted the spreadsheet. She said, "Now satisfied, good. Now I would like you to count and report the hours you worked last month." All right. I pulled my phone out and showed her the exact same spreadsheet, except this one also calculated how much I should be getting paid for my time. I counted the hours, which means I should be getting paid this much. She was absolutely livid with me. She was banging and throwing things in her office before she came back and handed me my hard-earned cash. That was also the day I decided I no longer wanted to work for her, due to her abusive behavior to both me and my coworker. I informed her of my decision the next day and now she has to find 2 replacements. I take some pity on her and jump in when she really needs someone, but am otherwise free from her clutches. The last story is called Enforcing Rules That Make No Sense. This happened 12 years ago. It was winter and I started working at an IT help desk in the United Kingdom. The pay was shocking. £6.50 an hour on the day shift and $7.49 if your shift went past midnight. Since I was single, I needed to work nights to be able to pay my rent. The job was the bottom of the ladder, but after spending 6 months looking for a job in IT and discovering I was hugely overqualified for entry level, I had started dumbing down my CV so companies stopped worrying I'd leave as soon as I got some experience to jump ship. I was just happy to have a job doing something I enjoyed, working with huge clients and gaining practical experience to complement my personal learning. Because I worked nights, the number of inbound calls was about 1/6 of the day, so there were fewer techs on shift, and even then, we spent a lot of the night going through logged calls that the day shift either couldn't finish or didn't have time to deal with. It became apparent to my line manager that I was above and beyond the regular first-line techs and 90% of the senior techs in both knowledge and aptitude, so I started being the only one doing callbacks. I didn't mind. Most of the time I would remote fix the issue based on the notes from the call log and then simply ring them and tell them to confirm. Sometimes they tell me other issues, so I'd fix those as well. I quickly noticed trends in areas of a specific client and started scripting automatic fixes I could call to move data around, reimage computers remotely and edit files anywhere. I told my line manager about these and she told me to keep them very quiet because I was technically breaking rules by doing this, as I wasn't a third-line tech, but she'd overlook it as long as I could test them in our local lab and she could see them working prior to a live usage. Now to bring in the bonus system. The system was tracked based on some stats. As long as you were within thresholds of those, you'd get a monthly bonus of £250. To me, on nights, that was nearly a week's work free, so I needed those. I had 3 times as many closed cases as needed because I was automating everything I could, but because of automation and my understanding of computer and network architecture, I spent almost no time on the phone to customers. You'd think that would be great, but we were expected to spend 6 minutes per call on average with each customer who rang in, divided by the number of cases closed. So my problem was, even if I was taking inbound calls, I could see the client number ringing, run a diagnosis on their system, quickly let them tell me anything else, and I'd be off the phone in a minute to investigate, or I'd set off a script to fix the issue and I could ring them back in 10 minutes to confirm. Using that 10 minutes to take or make another call or do some administrative work. It wasn't an issue with my line manager because she signed off my bonus every month. A year later, 2 things happened. For health reasons, my great manager transferred to days and one of the clients requested a special project. The project involved remotely editing the configuration on 8,000 hotspots. And why pay someone in your company to do it when you can pay a quarter of the price for a help desk to ring the store, check they weren't using the hotspot, update the configuration, ring them back and advise that it is usable again? Naturally, I'm assigned this task and told to get started. I do some investigation into how the client is managing their hotspots, the security they are running, and build a script to check for specific connections. If none were found, it would run the changes and then move on to the next in the list. If it found those specific connections, it would append the hotspot ID to the end of the list and try again later. I set this off and left it going and started taking on other work. The new line manager noticed this, questioned me in a one-on-one that night. I explained, walked him through the flow, showed him the output, and that at 3 in the night no one was using the hotspots in 98% of sites because, well, it's 3. He furrowed his brow because he didn't understand what I was talking about and changed the subject to my talk time stats. I explained why I wasn't hitting and would never hit it because of special projects like this, and it wasn't fair to track me on it. I told him what my old line manager did, and he again furrowed his brow and told me he wouldn't do that. I needed the talk time. Some discussion and argument happen and he tells me I need to spend 6 minutes on the phone with each case. Now, remember those 8,000 upgrades? That were around 1,000 cases I needed to log and make a 6-minute call. I needed to spend 6,000 minutes on the phone, 100 hours, 12 days. I try to explain this to him. He cuts me off and tells me to get started. I'm mad, and this is where the compliance comes in. I did just that. Instead of a 2-day project, it turned into a 1.5-month project where I stopped taking calls and working the logged calls list. I got my bonus. He, however, didn't get his because he was tied, amongst other things, to calls waiting and backlog length at the end of his shift.
Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe, and comment down below. Have a great day. Bye bye.